Member PTLA.
The opinions heard on this program, based on the many years of experience of Russ and Shannon, are offered for entertainment value only and as a guide to your repair needs. No claim to repair or cause is given or implied. Always consult with your own certified technician and follow all safety procedures before attempting any repair. To be a part of the show, call 866-594-4150. Under the Hood is produced by Prairie House Productions. All content is the property of Nordstrom's Automotive Incorporated and may not be used without our permission. Copyright Nordstrom's Automotive, Inc. Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show. We are glad to have you with us. Russ Evans is here to answer your automotive questions.
Thanks for joining us under the hood.
Shannon Nordstrom is here to do the same.
Welcome, Hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
I'm Chris Carter here to answer your calls at 866-594-4150. 866-594-4150. Got a call on hold. Anything we need to get to before we get to that? You got some pressing news?
I don't know what's more important than the caller.
That's a fair point.
The caller is always the most important.
Agreed.
What would we do without callers? Nothing.
Talk a lot.
I guess we could think about that. We could talk about what we could do without callers, but then that would defeat the purpose of...
It wouldn't last long.
We could let Chris tell jokes.
I got some jokes.
Yeah, you're always good for a good story.
I got one joke that I could tell. Otherwise, they're all no-go. You know what I mean?
What about the after show?
I don't think so.
Oh, God.
I guess we should just get to the callers. Let's go to Michigan and talk to James. You're on the Under the Hood Show. James, what can we do for you?
Yeah, I got a 1990 Chevy. It gets 8 to 9 miles a gallon. It's got 342 gears in the rear end. It's a camper special, 1990.
Okay, so you're wanting to brag about that?
No, I want better gas mileage.
Okay, we figured that might be where you were going, but
What engine is in this truck?
350.
350? What transmission is in the truck?
350.
It's an automatic?
3-speed automatic, not the overdrive?
Yeah, overdrive too.
Okay, so it'd be a 700 overdrive.
And where are you getting the, let's say, 9 miles per gallon? Where are you getting that? How is your driving that arrives at 9 miles per gallon? Highway?
Just back and forth to work, about 7-8 miles. Then it goes down in the wintertime.
Well, you're close. All the trucks we've ever had around here and the ones I've had that had this engine with the throttle body 350, they're going to be between, let's say, 9 on a low day to 13.
Oh, we can give them a little better
14.
than that. I had one that used to get 15.
I'm talking about in town, back and forth, hills, things like that. On the highway, 15, 16.
I want to back up though and ask him another question. What's the number you think you could get or you used to get maybe
There you go.
that this thing had that makes you think that it's exceptionally low? It doesn't sound good, right? But let's give it that. But tell me a little more that's got you going in your head there.
Well, I bought the truck, 3-4 years ago, and the people that had it before, apparently they didn't know what was going on. I got it dirt cheap.
Well, then you can buy a lot of gas.
Right?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Free lunch.
Okay,
Well, I had a 94 Chevy, and I got about 16.
Same engine, 350 engine?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep,
then it's
same
going to be
everything.
it'll be a throttle body, same setup in
until
that
95, they had that same
Yeah.
setup, basically. They went to an electronic transmission that was smoother in 92, 93. That helped. That they picked up some fuel economy. Then, has this thing ever been under the hood with someone to be able to put a lab scope on it to see how the fuel trims are burning? And is there any check engine lights on?
Yes, there's one check. There's engine light on. It says it's for because it's got dual exhaust on it.
Mm-hmm.
And got the catalytic converters in it, I think, because it ain't get enough back pressure.
Okay, well, there you
Non-OBD
go.
vehicle, OBD2 vehicles.
If it's had the converters removed and dual exhaust put on it, that alone can drastically affect your fuel mileage because you've changed the back pressure, the oxygen sensors aren't going to read the same, and then it has to be tuned. We had a lot of these trucks that they were pretty sensitive to it. People would put aftermarket air cleaners in them, and then they'd put a free-flowing exhaust on, and all of a sudden they dropped mileage. They were running poorly. The check engine light would come on, and it was because they didn't have enough back pressure in them. And then you could buy a chip that would tune them because they weren't a programmable one back then. It was just a chip that snapped in, and that would straighten everything out for you. But anytime you've got a check engine light on, boy, that can drastically affect fuel mileage. I'll bet if you pull read the data and the codes, you'll see the fuel trim is way off on this thing.
Okay, all right.
If you can get somebody, either yourself, get online, or you'll have to get somebody local too involved, a mechanic that's worked with some of these, and they're getting really hard to find. I don't know anybody around here that, in our shop anyways, that has ever worked with the plugging in the chips and that, and then trying to find out what's in your engine. All those things go at a combination. Some people just put a better muffler on the vehicle, give it a little more back pressure in order to correct these things without having to change to a chip, because they haven't built these chips in a very long time. There's companies that you can order custom burn ones from, but they're really expensive and hard to find.
This would be if the truck is really nice, and in good condition. Has this survived Michigan well, or is it Rust Belt Central?
No, it comes from Georgia originally.
Okay, Southern
when
truck.
I got it. So the body was fairly good on it until, in Michigan for 3-4 years driving in the salt, it's got cancer to it now.
Well, if you wanted to get really serious with this truck to try to make it run, how many miles are on the odometer? Or did that break because that was broke?
No, 164.
Okay. Well, there's some state of tune issues that just that alone, outside of what Russ is talking about, that could make that fuel economy drop pretty quick with that many miles on it if you haven't kept up on that. But, if you were really serious about making this thing run for efficiency and the fact that it doesn't have the cats and that sort of thing, I would consider putting – this is a bigger expense, but putting an aftermarket fuel injection system on. If you're going to keep the truck for a long time, they make some nice aftermarket fuel injection systems that you can bolt on the entire intake and the entire kit, and then you can get a standalone computer that comes with that you can tune and use with that system. We used to have quite a few of those that people wanted to modify back in the day.
Yeah.
And the technology's gotten more available to do that.
And now they're up in a couple $1,000 range, but you can easily, by the time you get into a mechanic and a custom tuner and trying to get a chip and everything, you can easily exceed that couple $1,000.
You could spend $1,000 real quick.
Oh,
you
yeah.
could spend $2,000 and you wouldn't have to try very hard trying to tune it with the people that still do that work. So that's where you need to start, I think, is thinking about a little bit of that stuff.
James, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. Now, with that age of truck, just the fact that the check engine light is on, it might be going into some, just by having that light on, it might be doing something that's causing the bad mileage, right?
Right, because if he says, the cat's been removed, so we got some kind of code related to that, I'm guessing it's probably oxygen sensor codes. And if the oxygen sensors don't read the fuel ratio correctly, it can't adjust.
So it's just dumping it in.
Yep.
Russ, remind me, and this is just my brain not engaging good enough. On that 90 Chevy, as a person, just a do-it-yourselfer, what plug-in can he do to get information? What's he going to get?
You're going to get some basic data out of it.
So can he learn enough to know which direction to turn on his own?
Yeah, you should be able to look at fuel trims and
With a Bluetooth code reader type of thing?
no, you can't.
That's what I mean.
use that.
If a typical thing that he's going to
You
buy
need-
is
no,
not,
you can't buy
it's
it.
not available, right?
Right, you can only get a basic flash code reader, put the paper clip in. and
That's
read.
what I was getting at. Okay, and I couldn't remember how that all went because now if that truck would be a 95 truck, that was the year
4 or 5.
That's the year they had to get the OBD2 ports in them and all that standardization that was being done. Then you got a lot more to work with as a do-it-yourselfer. But otherwise, with this 90, it is a little bit more of a box that he's in.
It
Yeah.
seems so weird for you to say 95 is when OBD2 came, because that seems like yesterday, but it's almost 30 years.
You always
That
got to
is-
remind us how old we
I
are,
can't,
don't you?
the older I get, the more amazing time becomes, or precious, I don't know. But it's weird to think that a 95
because
is...
I think of Russ is putting chips in, getting back to high school and having a couple of vehicles. I had a Grand National,
Hypertech.
wish I still had it. Some of the Trans Ams and stuff like that, putting chips in them. carefully pulling them out with the out of the static bag, just putting the chips in them to see if you can make them run different.
I just put more gas in. Forget the chips.
866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show, brought to you by Sturdivant's.
Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. Now, what has caught your attention in the automotive world?
Oh, man.
Well, Russ, your running mate up there, Jake, sent me a Facebook message the other night, and I think it might have even been last night. And it was about the ridiculousness and necessity, and we've talked about this before, the whole recall can of worms. And the one in particular that he sent me the note on, and he sent me a story from Autoblog, and it was in regards to the GMC Terrain headlight recall. And General Motors self-reported to the Federal Motor Vehicle Safety Standards Act that they were not in compliance with the headlights in their GMC Terrains. I can't remember exactly what yours was, but there was a tiny bead of light that was reflecting on low beam off of the high beam reflector, and it would shoot a piercing, basically like laser beam of light that would not go into oncoming traffic, but would go into the trees off somewhere high and above. Mm-hmm. Kind of done that. Have you ever had a light that had a leak and it's shot out of a case? And so they self-reported this. And they told the people that, hey, this is not right. We know we've got a light emission that's above the standard on low beam getting out of the light, but it is not hurting anybody. It's up in the trees. They're probably saying, hey, we're going to hit a sparrow or something.
People are getting blinded, falling off their decks. And
So no, GM got told that they had to do a recall on some 700, 800,000 vehicles. And I didn't realize they sold that many Terrains, but I think there must be some others involved in it. But so GM said, okay, we'll comply. And the fix that they came up with is an adhesive sticker that they apply to the headlight that goes on the frosted area that will bring that refraction down to a acceptable level to the standards.
It looks like they've put a piece of Scotch tape in one spot.
Yeah, and so
the
so people are coming in for this recall, and they're of course like, really, and they're getting 0.2 hours to do it, like 12 minutes to do the recall, which in the grand scheme of things, the people that are doing the recalls probably love it because they're getting something that's pretty easy to do, and clean it up. I could just see the application process: clean with this chemical, make sure dry, apply sticker. Mm-hmm. Oh, and they could have. Probably doesn't have to go way deep in their service bay to get that one done.
No.
And maybe the service writer just does it while he talks to you and checks you in.
Wonder if that would have been my job back in 1989
Chris,
at Midway Chev.
can you apply the sticker?
Here's a roll of tape. Just go.
Yeah. See, they'll do that, and then the tech will be angry because he should be getting the gravy work.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
Well, we should be
I wanna
getting
put
that.
the sticker
I could
on.
do 50 of those a day.
Sorry if people are listening out there and say, no, you guys don't all complain, but some do. But what they're saying is that GM is saying now, okay, we've put out a recall. We did what we're supposed to do. They're not really fond of the recall, but it does accomplish the goal. And now, you as a vehicle owner, if you think it's bogus and you've read about it, I'm not going to get this sticker put in. I've never had a problem. In some strange, litigious journey, if you were ever involved in an accident, you could be culpable because you didn't have your recall done and you were well informed. Now, that's taking it to a very far extreme.
Right.
Well,
But that's why these things happen in this world, is because it's so dang crazy. And I think some of this recall stuff is out of control.
so I had a rant 3 weeks ago. You were gone last week, so I couldn't use it last week. So now here we are this week. My rant is simple, and now it's relevant. My rant is about all the people out there who got the recall on those new Super Duty Ford trucks with the daytime running lights that were staying on at night, along with their headlights. So they're blind people coming at you.
Yeah.
They're obnoxious blinding. And people are just going, I can see better. I'm not getting it done. I've talked to at least a half a dozen that said, I can see better at night. I'm getting it done. I get flashed all the time. I just deal with it. Like, but you're supposed to go do it.
That's selfish.
That is a dangerous one. That is one where, if the police are headed at you and you're driving at them and it's pitch black at night and it's midnight and they go, hey, their upper and lower daytime running lights are on, they're getting a ticket. It's insane because, and also when you're driving down the road, I get the thing where they don't want you to flash your lights at somebody if they have their high beams on. If you flash your lights at somebody, Chris, you made a perfect point. In the United States, we've got roads. You've got two-ton vehicles headed straight for each other at a combined speed of like 120 miles an hour average. Why would you want to flash your high beams and blind the person driving that tank at you?
Just deal with it on your own terms and try to.
This was 2010 to 2017 GMC Terrains. So what they said in the story, and I got a kick out of it, they said, if you got the recall and you got a nice dealership around, go have a cookie and a cup of coffee and let them put the sticker on. At least get that out of the deal.
866-594-4150. Let's go to Utah and talk to Aaron. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Aaron, what can we do for you?
Morning, guys. How you guys doing?
Fantastic.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah, I've got a 98 Subaru Legacy. It's the 2.2 liter engine, the manual transmission. Kind of at my wit's end here. I've got a misfire on all 4 cylinders. Got a couple other symptoms. It's idle's really rough, and it'll drop down to about 500 RPM or lower at idle. I also have no power starting from a stop, well, minimal power, and going up a hill, both from starting from a stop and going up the hill. It runs really rough until I get to about 3,000 RPM, and then, immediately, like magic, it'll just start running normally. And if I step on the clutch and shift into neutral, sometimes it will hold at 2,000 RPM for several seconds. So I've done some discount part starts where I've thrown new spark plugs at it, a coil pack, found some used injectors, and I did a fuel pump and fuel filter, and none of those have, made a magical difference. I checked the voltage for the injectors at the engine computer. It seemed to be normal. Compression test on all 4 cylinders seemed to be normal, and the fuel test with the engine running was normal, but it did leak down just with the key on. That's kind of why I changed the fuel pump, but everything seems to be normal, and like I said, I'm kind of lost for what to do next.
Discount parts darts. I did write that down.
Mm-hmm.
That's parts darts we've heard many times, but I've discount part darts. I've DPD. Never wrote that one down.
There's so much going on here. You really need to have a shop look at this and get it diagnosed for you, because it could be anything. But I would definitely check the timing on this thing. You've got a car with a timing belt. If that thing is if the timing has retarded a little bit, it's going to run really bad at low RPM, but at high RPM it would run better, because it's a blend between too low, too high, and if it's jumped a little bit on the crank where both sides would be off, otherwise you'd see a compression difference one side to the other. That could cause this type of issue. A lot of other things that can cause this type of issue too, but I'd definitely look at that. Put it on top dead center with that crankshaft in the front, line up the 2 little arrows on there, the little marks, and then look at the cams, make sure they're lined up perfectly.
That was one of the things I was thinking about as he was saying is, I wonder if this thing is jump time or a little bit.
That's just one of the places we'd start if we were trying to figure out something that was this.
Well, you said it could be a number of things, and it could be, but boy, he's tried a number of things.
He's tried a number of things.
And none of those things have changed anything?
Yeah, I felt like I noticed a slight difference, the first time I run it after changing the injectors or changing the fuel pump, but it kind of gets to the same point. I did recently change the head gaskets, but it's run the same after that as it did before. So this was a problem before I changed the head gaskets. So
and when you put the head gaskets
I at
back
least got
on,
the timing to say.
Yeah, you retimed everything.
Yeah, so I think I got the timing at least the same as before I did the head gaskets, but maybe it was off then too. But yeah, I think I tried to get I definitely tried to get the timing right. I may have messed it up a little bit, but
if you mark the timing where it was, and then duplicated that, you successfully could have duplicated the same timing problem.
Use the marks.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I did use. So I put on a new belt. So I definitely was relying on the marks.
Have you popped out a oxygen sensor just per chance and see if you get rid of some back pressure? Try that too. Just see if that changes anything.
Okay. Yes, for sure.
Lot going on there.
Yep.
Aaron, good luck. 866-594-4150. 25-year-old car. We're going to take a break.
Sounds like timing yet.
When we come back, we want to talk to you on the Under the Hood Show.
Make a radio appointment each week to hear the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. If you like us on Facebook and join the Hoodie fan club at underthehoodshow.com, you could win a hoodie.
Like Ron Risby. Hey, congratulations.
Congratulations, Ron.
Are we talking about show contributor Ron Resnick?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
All these years. What has it been? Almost 30 years?
Yeah, Ron sends
hoodie
us a
for
lot of
Ron.
information about, over the years, he's the pursuit vehicles, that are out there, and he sent us some of the information about some of the electric police vehicles and helped, give us some research that he's seen on that. And so I appreciate the notes that Ron sends us. He's a very loyal hoodie, so I'm happy to see he's one of our winners finally.
Pursuit vehicle. There's not much cooler sounding than that. A pursuit vehicle. I'll be in the pursuit vehicle tomorrow
I got to
night.
tell you something before I forget, because I will. That Dodge, Mopar, Fiat Chrysler America, whatever you want to call them, they're going to have a new version of the Charger and of the Challenger, and they've got concept vehicles that are all electric,
Thought
and
they
they
were
are
dumping them.
They're beautiful. The design looks awesome. They
Saw the-
purposely
Like a future design or something? Like
it looks like a smoothed out, smooth door handled, just fresh Challenger. Did you see it?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Because they were going to dump the Challenger.
Oh, they are.
Was
but
that just the gas one?
Well, they're getting rid of the,
The
motor.
gas one, yeah.
They're getting rid of the gas.
Okay.
But they've got this new concept vehicle, and
It's cool.
it's really good looking. I showed my wife, what do you think? She goes, oh, that's sharp.
Just don't park in your garage.
But they're electric. Some of the words they're choosing to use, I love it. Here's one that doesn't this sound perfect? And it's an old Chrysler term, direct connection.
Oh, there you go.
They're using
There
that
you go.
for some of their electrical systems. That just works. And then they got the Banshee power system,
Yeah.
and they're going to have, and they're purposely making this thing performance to kick the butt of a gas powered one.
You think you would have forgot that?
What's that?
If
They
you
call
hadn't
the
brought
new
it
one
up
the
right now?
Recharger.
Yeah, but that's awesome. But then they've got also audible tunes that they've programmed into the car. As the battery cycles power, it's going to be able to make a noise that is equivalent. And I just can't believe that can be the same.
They said they have a setting on the electric vehicle. I just read it. That will reach 126 decibels out the tailpipe.
So-
Same as the current
Hellcat.
Hellcat. Which seems
So is it going to be a
ridiculous.
Banshee noise, or is it going to be we're going to fake the rumble of the Hellcat? I mean, what?
So it's a speaker in the exhaust system?
Have you seen the unveil of that? They have
I've only seen some of the there's an Audi, the electric SUV that has the same sound thing in it. I've seen that on TV and went,
I have to say,
Is
on
that gas? And it was electric.
The release of the Challenger, the video,
I did not see that.
they're revving it, and it sounds
What
a
it
little
sound
bit like you're making a sound to make it.
you would
go.
think so. You step on the gas pedal, you don't go anywhere, there's no vibration.
But it also has like an orchestral drone, so when it comes out, it's going menacing, and then they rev it. It's kind of like
really,
you're watching
like
a
heavy
movie.
duty Tron.
Like if you were
Tron.
watching a movie and that car came on the stage, that was the noise.
I can see that coming. Hey, Universal Technical Institute could tell you all about this stuff.
Yes. I derailed us completely. I don't know
Sure,
what
I
you
did.
said
They're
that made
gonna
me
be-
think of direct connection, and that just totally derailed me.
They'll be teaching this stuff because it's right there in front of us. So that's important. Check out Universal Technical Institute, uti.edu, and find out everything you want to know about being trained to work on this and lots of other stuff.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Mike. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Mike, what can we do for you?
Hi, I've got a 2006 GM pickup, and the LED display, one day it's there and the next day it isn't. What do I do?
On which area? The one on the Instrument Cluster Information Center, or the radio?
Yeah,
or
the instrument cluster where it tells you the mileage and everything.
Well, the problem is most likely in that instrument cluster. And there are some places online where there are people that will provide a service where you can send them yours and they will fix it. There's some people online that will say, are you up for the challenge? and they will show you in a YouTube video or something how to take that thing apart and find some bad solder joints. And
I believe Russ said once it's only like 40 solder joints that you have to redo.
Yeah.
so if you're one of them investigative people with the patience, there is a fix that way maybe. Otherwise, like our partners, Dorman Products, they make a replacement cluster where you send yours in. Actually, they send you one. You pay a charge, a core charge, and then you send yours back. They give you a prepaid box and everything to send it back with. And they send you a refurbished unit, and they can do it with the mileage set where it's supposed to be.
And that would be
it's plug and play. You give them the VIN number ahead of time so that everything's set up and ready to roll once you plug it in.
And you say that he has to do it, but if he could go to a shop and have
Yeah,
they
but
would
this
handle it.
is something that Mike, I'm guessing you're a handy guy.
Why? What makes you think that?
He's listening to our show, and I think he's a handy guy. Mike, are you a handy guy?
Used to be. I'm getting old now.
Yeah.
But I think you can still do it.
I'm on the show, and
If you can still open a can of paint, you can change that cluster.
Okay.
What about a pickle jar?
What a weird
Now,
analogy.
I think a pickle jar might be a little harder than that dash because literally you grab the
stuck.
dash and pull.
Yep.
Just pull carefully, and it'll come off, and then you
The
have
trim
four-
bezel that goes
yeah.
around the cluster.
and then it's 4 screws.
Yep. And then you just got to pull it out far enough to get a hold of the hardest part is probably getting the clip out of the back for the electronics.
Just unplugging it because you
Yep.
got to squeeze it with your hand and then
Yep.
just unplug it.
So
you
it's
watch
not
that thing on
it's
YouTube.
not
you
real
go,
hard.
Wow, that was simple.
So that's what you probably need to do. But there
Okay.
are, you can buy. How many miles you got on the truck, Mike?
212,000.
And if you don't, Russ, back me up on this, but if you don't care about the mileage being accurate, since the mileage is already pretty high, you could get a replacement used one. Is that plug and play without having, or you have to program an 06? You think you have to program it?
Oh, I got to talk. We're on the radio. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I say there's people that will do that if they know somebody that could program it for them and just get another one and buy a replacement like on car-part.com. But there is some programming required. That's why with Dorman's exchange program, they will have that all done for you. You give them the VIN number ahead of time, and they have that all set up so it's truly plug and play.
And certified and
Yep.
the whole thing
Yep.
there.
You can get it back to 212,000 actual miles.
Mike, good luck. 866-594-4150. Now let's talk to Harvey. You're on the End of the Hood Show. Harvey, what can we do for you?
Hello, I have a 2008 Pontiac Torrent with a 3.4 V6. Anyway, I'm starting to get a smell of antifreeze inside the car when the heater's on, and the passenger side window fogs up a little bit. It's got to be a slow leak because it's not losing much. Can I get by with putting K-Seal in there and doing that, or am I going to have to replace the heater?
Maybe
yes, you can.
I'd sure give it a try.
both. Yeah.
There's a couple things going on here. First, check and see if this vehicle falls under the recall for the heater box where they replace the evaporator core. Because when they're replacing the evaporator core, if it hasn't been done yet and it's still going to be covered in there, they had it for a safety thing because of defrosting the windshield, and it was just crazy. But see if it's covered. If it is, then the right thing for a shop to do would be to say they pull the whole dash out and pull this whole box out, and they have to take it apart to put a evaporator core in it. It literally takes 5 seconds to pull the heater core out, throw it in the garbage, and slide the new one in, and you'd have to pay for the heater core. So they shouldn't be charging you like another hour or two.
Yeah,
to
so even if they
change that.
charge you an hour, it'd be worth it.
Yeah, it would be worth it, but it just seems crazy because it's just like right there when you're looking at it. But if not, we definitely go the K-Seal route. That's what we would suggest because it won't clog the system, and it will fix it'll clog a leak.
It's a ceramic-based product,
Right.
not a silicate-based product. And
Yep.
if something's going to work, that's what it's going to be.
Unless you got a giant leak, but it doesn't sound like you have a giant leak. Otherwise, you'd have coolant running out of this
No.
box on the ground.
Sure. And another question is, how do I check if it's had that recall?
You have to call the dealership, a GM dealership. Doesn't have to be necessarily Pontiac because they're gone now, but just a GM dealership that does like Chevy, Buick, might be Chrysler too. Chevy,
They
Buick,
might have one next
Yeah.
door.
GMC, Chevrolet, and just say, hey, here's my VIN number. Is this vehicle? I understand there was a recall on the heater box assembly. Is this, has it been done on mine yet? Is it still eligible? And if they say, yeah, it's here, and this is what we'll do, they'll tell you, and it should be free. Always ask up front if there's any additional charges involved when you have to go in for a recall. Typically, there's not, but sometimes there are if it's something else.
Do you get mad about that GM has to warranty Pontiac still? Because you're kind of
I think they should.
You're a naysayer. You're a warranty
It's
naysayer.
the safety thing. They do recalls for safety issues, and those can be
What
a
do
lot
they
of
do
them.
for ones that actually disappeared, like Saab? What do they do?
They celebrate.
Well, in the word, so let's say you have
we're out.
Well, no, but you think about it. Sorry, Russ, I talked over here, but take the Takata airbag recall. GM and others pushed and kicked that can down the road of when they were going to have to do the recall on some of their major produced products. Just imagine how much. Okay, they had a lawyer cost, and somebody, a bean counter, is weighing their cost to defend and delay versus how many vehicles will be retired by the time they actually have to do it, because they knew they were going to have to do it eventually. So if by the time they got to their recall, another 100,000 vehicles had been retired and crushed that they don't have to do the recall on, do they win? I think they do.
Oh, that's a good point. Every day they can delay and fairly or unfair.
Yeah. So
The
eventually,
truth is, every day you
this
can delay
torrent is
that.
going to be off the road.
But
Yeah.
you got to be careful with the game you're playing, because if you
Absolutely.
have, let's say you had a torrent and it came up with a safety recall for an airbag, and you push it down the road, and now they're not making airbags for the torrent, but there's not that many on the road. Let's say there's 50,000 of them that come in that need the airbags. They're not available. Now the dealer's required to purchase that car back at a fair market price because they can't supply this safety.
Not the dealer,
item.
the manufacturer.
Right, the manufacturer, not the dealer.
Yeah.
They're like, we don't care, that's a manufacturer problem. But they could run into that. They usually don't, and sometimes they'll make a run of parts for this.
But those are the challenges these guys are balancing
And
with
they're
all this
tougher
craziness.
these days because I am still a year later waiting for a part. I'm waiting for one airbag for my newer vehicle that is not being produced. GM says, sorry, we're not producing this right now.
Still not available.
Because it only fits the 1 year. The newer one and the older one don't. And they're like, well, we're not building it because we have just enough for crash vehicles for our own stuff in stock. I'm like,
How many airbags have you had in your Element?
I don't know what you're talking about.
and that Element might be one of those things
It's-
too, where they just go, "Hey, what are we going to do?
The recalls have been recalled, so we're now without. We've had one done. I think we're on our third that we're
Yeah.
supposed to have done.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yep, it does.
Harvey, thanks very
Craziness.
much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Car feeling ill? Don't want to spread it to your wallet? Call the Motor Medics now for free advice.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us. Let's talk to Heather. What can we do for you, Heather?
Hi there. So I'm looking for a first car for my 16-year-old daughter and came across the 2007 Jeep Liberty Sport. It has 124,000 miles, and it's the 3.7-liter six-cylinder. I know that Jeep, some of their engines are temperamental and then others that are very solid. So I was wondering if you guys could tell me, is this a good engine or not?
This is an interesting question
It's
because
go
there
ahead.
are flags that pop up on it that may or may not be true.
Yeah, it's, you know what? I have to be realistic.
Heather, you have a perfect question. 'Cause
Yeah,
that
I have
is-
to be realistic because in our business, my side of things, where we dismantle cars and sell parts to people, you know, we see the worst of the worst.
Putting one in, just finished it yesterday.
And so we definitely see a high demand for 3.7 liter, 4.7 liter. There's even a nickname in the industry, the Deadly Sevens, of engines. Having said that, of course, we get them in all the time. They've got 160,000 miles, 170,000 miles, and they're still working just fine. But the maintenance requirements are extremely important, and I would want to only buy one when it's getting older like that. If you could see that you knew a great maintenance history, previous owner that had really cared for it, it'll give you a fighting chance, because you also got to look at what can you afford, and that's a good vehicle. I mean, it's got some great characteristics with the 4-wheel drive system available for our. Are you in our northern climate?
Yeah, we're from Indiana.
Yeah, so you got some snow and you have to deal with every once in a while. So it's nice having that extra capability of 4-wheel drive. I could argue that maybe just in that part of the world, even a simple all-wheel drive system would be adequate in certain vehicles. The transmissions are overall pretty solid. The front drive shafts wear out, but that's because they got a cruddy rubber boot they put on them that just disintegrated and eventually let all the lubricant out of it. That's a replaceable item that's $400 or $500. I would have it inspected. We talk about it all the time. Have somebody put it up on a hoist, do a used car inspection, spend $100 or $200 if you can swing it to have somebody look at it if you're getting ready for purchase time. Do a vehicle history report nowadays, like the name brand search of Carfax. We talk about this a lot. They've done, I think, a good job of affiliating with a lot of different information sources. So not only can you see a mileage history, title transfer history, a salvage vehicle history if it happened to be in a state that has salvage statuses, and those can be your triggers of what to inspect when you look at it, or what to have your brother, uncle, sister, whoever the car expert is in the family, that can look at certain things based on having some information when you look at it. I don't know. I'm not going to come out here and endorse that vehicle and say, yep, that's a good one. Because I think if I was going to say that, I'd rather see you looking for an 07 RAV4 or a CRV instead of a Liberty, just for overall reliability. But they're pretty darn good vehicles. But it's just they will pop an engine every once in a while. So
her fear is founded, maybe not accurate, but in general, her.
Russ, what would you
Her
what would you
hesitation
look
is-
for?
I have a couple neighbors with these, and I have a couple people at church with these, and they've driven them a very long time, and they haven't had any problems. I'm like, you haven't had any problems? No. When do you change the oil? Not very good. I'm like, and they still run amazing. It's like, I get a number of these in our shop. Well, that's because we're the ones you call when they break. So we've got a base of like
That's a good-
300,000 people around here, and we're doing 4 or 5 a year. I don't know where else they could be going, other shops too, but I think if the vehicle's runs pretty good, who drove it before, or if it was privately owned and you've got you've seen it running around town for a long time, that's a little different too.
One thing I will say, that if you have this is going to be harsh, but I've been around long enough. If you have a used vehicle, now like this 07 with just 120,000 miles, if it's being sold by a private party and you can know the story, hey, this was my aunt's car, she's had it for 15 years, always maintained pretty well, I kind of like that. I think that's all right.
Mm-hmm.
But if it shows up at a dealership, and
Yep,
they
it's a deal. It's
and they just
dealership.
acquired it, and it wasn't a local trade-in with a similar situation, and in today's market, if that vehicle was available at auction, I'm a little concerned about why somebody at a dealership took it to an auction and couldn't sell it themselves,
Okay.
and they took it to a wholesale auction.
The one that we are putting an engine in
Makes me nervous.
We put it in for a car dealership. That doesn't do their own service, and they just traded it in from a person who is a manager at a large car dealership and had immaculate service records on time every month that we could trace back on Carfax Shop, and the thing blew up.
It just, like I said, it
lost
popped
the
all of a
timing
sudden.
chain, went through the cover and went. But we've also had some that didn't have great maintenance that still had the issue or worked well. But I think if it sounds good, it's quiet, you've got to get that used car inspection, because a lot of times you can hear the problem coming on these engines before it actually happens. You'll hear a little rattle on startup. I would definitely not buy it unless you can go start that car up when it's got frost on it in the morning. You know for a fact it's cold and hasn't been started for the
This
day.
time of year, you can do that. You're not otherwise.
Yep.
You got to wait till November.
But if you fire that thing up and it rattles, gives you a little quick, and then it's quiet, I wouldn't buy it unless they, you've got to put
I
timing
think
chains in
we
it.
successly scared her and not scared her.
I'll
I don't
say,
know that we gave her an
I'll say
answer.
this: you guys are the car guys. I'm not. Heather, skip it.
I'd
That's
have a
what we're
family
saying.
member buy one after I did a complete used car inspection, on it,
Okay.
just to be sure.
All right.
Really, the only problem with that vehicle, the main one we see, is just the timing chain issue, which is a big one, but it's one you can
Do the
check.
vehicle history report and find out if, like I said, if they just got it as a trade-in locally or what the story is.
Skip it. Just skip it.
I know, but
Just skip it because it's not going to work out for mentally.
Call us back with a different question. We're really smart, I promise.
Heather, good luck. Thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Bob. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Bob, what can we do for you? We got 2 minutes, Bob.
Thanks, guys. Unfortunately, my wife just inherited a 1996 Dodge 1-ton Explorer camper van with 360 in it. Got 50,000 miles on it. We took it camping, brought it home, put it in the driveway ornament spot, and noticed there was a couple drips for a leak. I put an oil change pan underneath it. Come out the next day and look, and I got a gallon of coolant in it. Leaked right out of the bell housing gasket.
Yeah, we know what that
Uh-oh.
was. So the frost plugs, the block plugs at the back of the block have rusted through.
most likely, yep.
Yeah, if there's no coolant on top, make sure you look at the intake manifold with a flashlight. Make sure it's not coming down the back of the engine. If it's 100% dry from the bell housing bolts up, then it's coming from the back of the engine from the two block plugs. And K-Seal is not going to fix that because they're rusted through and it's so thin back there that it's not good.
So
We've
what-
had this happen in our shop. We pull the transmission out. We pound in a couple new block plugs, put the trans back in, and while we're at it, we get as many of the other ones on the engine that we can. There's one on each side, at least one. There might be two on each side of that, and then some in the front. But, yeah, you just want to replace those and then flush the coolant.
A lot of
And
people
you-
call them frost plugs over the
Yeah.
years. But
But it's probably not as bad as you think. But make sure you don't have a leak above, because if it's a heater hose leaking, then it would do the same thing.
Bob, thanks very much for the call. That one seemed straightforward.
It's straightforward, but it's not the easiest thing. But it is a non-overdrive old trans. You can just pop the thing right
just gets
out.
a little more interesting when it's a big apparatus like that, motorhome.
That'll do it for this hour of the Under the Hood Show. Hour 2 is coming up.
You're listening to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show with the Motor Medics, Shannon Nordstrom and Russ the Super Tech Evans. Shannon is an ASE engine and parts specialist, and Russ is an ASE Master Certified Technician with extensive factory drivability training. Join the Motor Medics for fun and free automotive advice with real-world solutions to everyday automotive problems. The Under the Hood Show is heard weekly on this and other great radio stations across the U.S. Find out how you can participate in the show by visiting underthehoodshow.com.
With Russ Evans, this is Shannon Nordstrom, thanking you for tuning in to the Nordstrom's Under the Hood Show. Have a great day, and remember, PTLA.
The opinions heard on this program, based on the many years of experience of Russ and Shannon, are offered for entertainment value only and as a guide to your repair needs. No claim to repair or cause is given or implied. Always consult with your own certified technician and follow all safety procedures before attempting any repair. To be a part of the show, call 866-594-4150. Under the Hood is produced by Prairie House Productions. All content is the property of Nordstrom's Automotive Incorporated and may not be used without our permission. Copyright Nordstrom's Automotive, Inc. Now, let's go under the hood with the Nordstrom's Motor Medics.
Welcome to the Under the Hood Show. We are glad to have you with us. Russ Evans is here to answer your automotive questions.
Thanks for joining us under the hood.
Shannon Nordstrom is here to do the same.
Welcome, Hoodies. Thanks for tuning in so we can help you tune up.
I'm Chris Carter here to answer your calls at 866-594-4150. 866-594-4150. Before we get to calls, they're coming in now. I was on a road trip since we last.
Yes, Chris, you were on a road trip.
And I have nothing to add. For the
Oh,
first
come
time.
on.
No, I have no vehicle, car-related things from that road trip that came up, which is very unlike me.
I do have to ask you, though, because be remiss if I didn't ask. You got highlights, don't you?
Sure.
Can you give us a couple nuggets?
Got sick.
Oh, I drove. It was kind of like a nature trip. I went through Spearfish Canyon, went out to Wyoming, drove around in Wyoming for a while, went to Devil's Tower. It was fantastic. I went on a full road trip on my own for the first time in maybe ever.
That
Yeah,
sounds
because you
like
usually got
highlights
one
to
of your
me.
kids going with you. Your
Love
wife
road
going with
trips,
you.
do something, and it was great. But yeah, I have no vehicular highlights from it. Just nothing came up
Did the weather cooperate with you and everything?
perfectly. Everything.
So some top-down driving?
I wasn't in the convertible.
Oh, you weren't?
No, because I was going off-road and doing some other stuff, gravel roads.
Sure,
and
sure.
I knew your dad would get super mad at me if I drove the Pontiac.
NHOU,
Yeah,
New Hampshire Oil
yeah.
Undercoating.
Although where I ended up going, I couldn't even have gone in the other car. I needed the element.
You needed
for
some
this one.
clearance.
Yeah.
We were looking at that the other day. You know, you spray that under the car and you can protect it from the rocks and the gravel
Mm-hmm.
and beating up and poking holes because so the new Dodge trucks, I got to get the right years, but like the 06 era, they put like a foam, like a sponge inside the rocker panels.
A lot of them do that for sound insulation.
For sound,
yeah.
Grand Prix were that way. So when you get a little pinhole in there or just the weld that's not perfect, it gets the moisture in there and then it rusts from the inside out. But also, when you're talking about those gravel roads, Chris, you're going on the gravel roads, and after a while, I just drive a quarter mile, eighth mile a day. Well, sandblast it with the rock stuff, and you get those pinholes. So cover that baby up with the NHOU.
866-594-4150. Let's talk to Gilbert. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Gilbert, what can we do for you?
I am trying to get a title on a car that has been stolen, and supposedly the mechanic that got the car for the people has already he's tried to get a title for it, but it seems like nothing's happening.
Sounds fishy, Gilbert. I don't know.
What state are you in?
Mm-hmm.
South Dakota.
Yeah, our state does not have what some other states have, which is called like a bonded title that you can get.
Right.
And so it makes it a challenge. There are processes that mechanics can use with mechanics liens and different things. There's a distinct process in the codified law for a mechanic to use and to eventually get the vehicle in lieu for repair charges that are due on the vehicle and or storage charges. And that's the process the mechanic probably needs to be looking at, because if he was the one that did work and didn't get paid and ended up with the vehicle, that's a process that to be used. It's defined in law and how to do it, but it's not. It's not a. There's no easy button to it, at all, and so that's the process that he's going to have to look at. Now, yeah, that's it. Because if he's done the work, he's got to find out, and regardless, you've got to send registered letters and different things to the vehicle owner of record. That's on record. Any financial institution that has a interest in it also has to be notified if there's a lien on the title, and those processes are there for particular reasons.
So it just doesn't disappear.
Yeah, and so that's what you're gonna.
It's to prevent things from happening like this.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it also affects.
Because we get people that call us often where there's a vehicle sitting where, well, I know this guy doesn't want this anymore. He left it with me. I never got a title. I want to sell it. I want to give it to my kid. I want to make a race car. There's all kinds of things people want to do with it. But the reality is you don't own it. Right. And legally, you have to square all that before it can go to another owner. And that's the challenge a person's in right now. And like I said, some states make it easier than others.
Some states make it super hard. Like in Texas, I know for a fact there, when we used to be able to send a letter to the last person who owned it, and then if they didn't respond, they'd go through a big process, and like 12 weeks later, they would issue a title if they knew for a fact that it was going to the name of the person that's on the title and they really still live there. But now, like I have a friend that owns a shop down there. He bought a car from somebody, didn't take the title with him that day, and he knew that was wrong because I just should have taken it, and I didn't. I was going to go back and get it. The guy says, oh, it's in my thing. He thought he could trust him. Well, now the guy won't respond, and the state says, that person lives there. He is not responding. You do not get a title unless they respond. They're alive. It's registered in their name. I'm sorry. It's just the way it is. So you've got to really watch. I have learned my lesson over the years, and going back like 30 years, I would never buy a car now without a title. And if I had one in my possession without a title, I would definitely not do any work to it until I knew it was physically, like the state says, it's in the mail. It's just to protect yourself, whatever state you're in.
One thing that can happen sometimes, if you know, and somebody does the search with the DMV or whoever. Sometimes law enforcement, they may help you. They don't have to, but there's the times that it can help. If you know who that owner is and something got messed up and somebody didn't transfer, and you truly know the story of the vehicle, and you truly know the story and it's legit. Sometimes you can get that original owner to do a duplicate for you, and then have them work with you. But that's not always the case. But you got to get a hold of the person who's of record on the title.
Right, and that's what I've been hearing from the Department of Revenue here in Clear Lake, South Dakota, that he has to send a verified letter, and if it's not open and sent back, then they can do something with it. But otherwise, they're putting their hands behind their back and doing nothing. And if a car can sit for 30 years,
yep,
is the only time you can get a bonded title out of South Dakota.
Yep. No, they don't want to make it easy. That's for sure. So,
Gilbert, good luck if that is indeed your real name.
You're funny.
And here's where I'm getting from this call. There's no one I know who would be more familiar with this than Russ, who has a shop, who I'm sure has done stuff where someone brings a car in and then disappears, and you have this car sitting in the lot, and you have to figure out.
Thankfully, it doesn't happen very often.
And Shannon, owning this place, this recycling yard, you must deal with this a lot.
We do.
And to know that you guys don't have any sort of a good answer.
The people that call us that want to sell vehicles, mainly I would say it's not so much the wrecks, the new stuff that we want the most. That is what we want the most. It's the
car sitting there.
It's the end of life stuff where people are wanting to get rid of it. And we call them our C, D, and X brand vehicles that we're buying for either our self-service or for scrapping for that piece of our business.
Mm-hmm.
We get asked daily about buying vehicles without titles, and we just won't do it. That's got to get squared up. And now that the state has, in our state and most states have changed their rules where plates stay with owner, and also that you're registering your title transfers on the computer, the dealers and such, are putting them on the computers. It's really changed the game because they know who's supposed to be getting a title
Right.
now.
Yeah, it isn't just gone. There's some sort
there's
of
a trail. There's more of a trail at this point. So.
Gilbert, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Get your planner out right now and schedule your next radio appointment with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. Let's talk to Wade. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Wade, what can we do for you?
Good morning. I have a '05 Chevy Silverado, and all of a sudden the service airbag light came on the instrument cluster. I've done a little research. Just want to get your guys' opinion.
Well, with the research that you've done, what is it leading you to?
Some connection underneath the seat, possibly, or the sensors on the front, underneath the radiator.
Probably the more common one we see, the seat belts and the wires in the seats. That's all pretty easy to check. You got yellow wires up underneath your seats, and you got wires that go to your seatbelt indicators off the base of the seat belts. Give those an inspection. Run the seat all the way forward and look at that seatbelt connection. Look up underneath there to make sure nothing's snagged, caught, ripped, broke. The yellow wires that are underneath those seats where they plug in. That's more of just a physical inspection. You might even try just unplugging them and plugging them back in to see if that makes a difference. But if not, you're probably going to be going to the corrosion and problems with that sensor up on the front radiator support most likely.
Lots of those we replace.
It's a pretty common problem.
And another question, is that something you would recommend buying brand new or coming down to you guys?
We as at our full service auto recycling, where we go get the parts and stuff for you, we don't sell a lot of that sort of stuff because it's just not worth. I mean, it's just hard to say, but the labor costs so much to go retrieve and remove that it doesn't make a lot of sense compared to the new item. If the new item's not available, then the rules change a little bit because supply and demand drives a price that we can say, all right, we'll do that for $100 or whatever it might happen to be. But it's not something we are inventorying actively at all.
Because
But
there's just not enough market.
But if you go to a self-service facility, we have one at our business, and there might be one where you're at. But at the self-service portion, that sensor is the same on Silverados, Sierras, Tahoes, Suburbans, Yukons in a certain year range. And so if you just compare the visible part number right on the sensor, you can grab another one and put it on, and it'll be just fine, and you're probably going to pay less than $10.
That's solid. That's a good. But
They're getting expensive new, like a couple hundred sometimes.
Yeah. Wade, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. Let's talk to Gary. You're on the End of the Hood show. Gary, what can we do for you?
Yes, good morning. Thanks for the program. We just bought a 2017 Colorado, and I didn't notice it because I'm usually the one that drives it. The female end or the buckle that's hooked to the seat is way down in there, and the passenger seat is longer, comes up further on the seat belt. And then our grandson's got a 16, and his is the other way around, where it's short down on the passenger seat side and then longer on the driver's side. You know, I know we'll probably have to get an extension, but would Chevy be interested in replacing that?
I'm kind of so you're talking about the female receptacle is down low enough that it's not easily accessible to click
hard
into.
To buckle. Yep.
Well, the only
and his was on the passenger side, where ours is on the driver's side.
You know, on that year of vehicle, the only time I've seen that is when the buckle has had the pretensioner discharged in an accident, and it shortens up the buckle to pull slack out of it. Do you know, has the vehicle ever been in a collision?
Yeah, we done a check on it, and it said it wasn't.
Okay, all right. Well, that's something to consider.
Okay.
On some vehicles, they have a pretensioner charge in the female seatbelt portion that has a cable hook to it, and it pulls it down tighter. And usually when you look at them, you can see the plastic housing will actually rip because it shrinks it up enough. That would be something to consider, but that'd be odd that you and your son would both have one, and it would be because usually when they go, it's both front seats. A lot of times, it's both front seats on the seat belts.
Oh, okay.
But otherwise, I would want to go back to. I think I would want to go to the dealer and say, "Can you explain this to me? Is there something going on here? Do we got some other ones on the lot, which is hard to see anymore because there's not much sitting on lots nowadays? But is there another one I can look at? Is this normal? What do we got going on here?"
And seat belts are typically if there is a problem with it and they sold it to you that way, that's one of the few things that some states allow you to go back and require them to fix if it's a safety restraint system. So definitely do some inquiring there to find out what's going on.
I did look at a 19, and they were both long like they're supposed to be.
Yeah, I believe it's supposed to be. I have not seen one that was in any vehicle that was too short and hard to reach unless, like Shannon said, there was an issue. Now, that car may have had them both go off, and they may have replaced just the driver's side so they could buckle it and left the passenger side, but you should have an airbag light on the dash. Make sure when you turn the key to the run position when you first start it that the airbag warning light comes on for a few seconds and goes off. If you never see an airbag light when you fire it up, something's wrong with that system, and that needs to be checked.
And this is unique to his vehicles, right? I mean, there's something weird going on.
Something doesn't sound right to me.
Twisted?
Yeah, maybe somebody had the seat out of, but these newer ones, like in those pickups, Colorados, Silverados, they're so rigid.
Yeah.
It would be impossible almost to twist it.
They use like a 1/4-inch steel kick pull in there attached to an airbag, just charge.
It's a solid piece. You don't get that the wrong way by accident. So I would want to be looking at this, make sure that it's not some deal. Maybe if you get onto a blog, if somebody's a computer person that loves getting on, there's a Canyon, Colorado blog, I'll guarantee it, because they're a popular truck. And maybe that's a question that gets asked, and somebody will say, "Oh, yeah, I have that too. It's they ran out of parts, and you got the shorter one on some, and But it's you should have easy access to that clicker and that snap to put it in. It should be a
one-handed.
It should be a non-event.
And measure your arms too. Make sure they're. Well, I mean, Gary, He gets in his vehicle and the driver's side's too small. Gets in the other vehicle, it's a passenger. Maybe
Or does
he's
somebody have
just-
really long legs and the seat's in different position and it gives a bit weird pitch to it?
Maybe it's just Gary. When he's in the passenger vehicle, it's, I don't know. 866-594-4150. Gary, good luck. Thanks very much for the call. Let's talk to Paul. You're on the Under the Hood show. Paul, what can we do for you?
Hi there. I've got an '06 Infiniti QX56, and it was a recent purchase. And the suspension was wonky, and so I just took it into a shop and told them to, blank check type thing.
Ooh.
And they put
Airbags.
They put front strut. Yeah, they put front struts and some knuckles on the front, but it was still the exact same. And well, now it's easier to conclude that it's in the back. The problem's in the back, and it has what I assume to be an automatic air shock system. I had crawled under there for the first time and observed these airbags, or air shocks. So are those prone to difficulty or malfunction?
Yes. In our climate, in the northern climates, the Rust Belt climates, the air suspension systems that are used on a lot of these upscale vehicles are expensive and break a lot. Like our friends at Dorman Products and others make, Arnott Industries is another one. They make replacements for a lot of these. And so what happens is the struts themselves start having problems. They start hemorrhaging air out the strut because the casing where the rubber rides over the metal gets corroded, and eventually it breaks it and lets the air escape. And then the pump keeps running overtime trying to keep up with the leaks, and it burns the pump out.
Randomly, I've heard that what I now associate as being the pump, it's right above the left rear wheel, if that's correct. And I thought, well, what's that? My fuel pump? What the heck's running?
I fought one of these.
Now
I fought one of these on an '06 Range Rover, and I spent way too much money fixing it. There are kits available for some vehicles to retrofit them back to standard struts, because that is QX56. That's a Pathfinder variant, or is that the Titan variant? If you looked at the Nissan sister.
I couldn't tell you.
It's the big one.
It's the bigger one.
I'm
That'd be
not
like a
sure.
Titan chassis, I believe.
think so.
And so they're maybe a little more difficult on that one to get a set. How much did you spend already? I just got to ask.
I'm $1,200 in.
I actually thought it might have
it's
been
nice.
worse, but you're about halfway there. Or more. If the pump's still running, because you got to get the system sealed, and if it's the bags that are bad, and sometimes it can just be a coupler or something that's an air diverter. That's very wishful thinking.
It's not on this
It's more than likely the struts themselves that are leaking the air. And if the pump's still running today, let's get this fixed right away, or pull the fuse for the pump so it doesn't sit there and keep running. So you can rescue that. You can rescue that pump until you get a chance to get those airbags struts replaced.
Paul, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you on the Under the Hood Show.
Prepare to learn something. You're going under the hood.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us. If you subscribe, you click the bell on our YouTube
It'll
channel.
ring.
And you sign up for the Hoodie fan club at underthehoodshow.com, you could win a hoodie.
Like Dale Lewis. Congratulations from all of us here and our friends over at Universal Technical Institute. Check out uti.edu. Maybe you have what it takes to be a auto mechanic.
Maybe you got a kid who doesn't know what they want to do. Send them the link. Go check it out, and then send it to them and go, hey, check this out. And by kid, I mean a 20-year-old. What's a kid nowadays? 0 to how old is a kid?
Are we talking goats or humans?
Humans. 20, 25? Is it an age thing or is it
It's an age thing. As I get older, kids get older.
Yeah, right.
I think they're kids. They're toddlers, and then they're like infants.
they're kids
toddlers,
until they have
and-
kids.
I'd say kids until 12.
Little kids and big kids.
And then when
Yeah.
they're 13, you call them teenagers. Don't call them this tween stuff. It's stupid. Just say, look, they're a kid until they're 12. Now they're 13. They're a teenager. When you get
my
to be
kids-
21, now you're an adult.
But you got a kid. We got a kid that works for us. He's 30. He came
That's
in
not
and
a
he's
kid.
getting. Is it? That's my question right there.
I got people that call me, hey, kid, and they're like 60. I'm like,
That's because they just don't know your name.
right.
yeah, exactly.
And
Yeah,
you
buddy.
look so young. Yeah, pal.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, buddy. 866-594-4150. Let's go to Canada and talk to Colin. Hey, buddy, what's up with your car?
Yeah, first time caller. I've been listening a long time.
Thank you.
I have a Isuzu Amigo. It's a little rarity up here. I know you guys got lots of them down there, but
It's pretty much a rarity around here,
people
too.
stop and take
Disappearing.
people take pictures of them all the time. Take pictures of it all the time at my house. So, I changed the timing belt on it 6 months ago, and it had this one's tensioner is bolted to the oil pump, and the top of the oil pump broke off, which released the belt. Is that engine going to have the valve's going to run into the pistons on that engine, or
That is an interference engine.
idling in the driveway?
Yeah, that is an
Okay.
that is an interference engine. You could have gotten lucky if it was idling in the driveway. You could have hit something but not severely broke it.
If the engine is your friend, he's the only one that got it. You
I
two
didn't get it.
It's an Amigo.
Oh.
Get it? Okay. Anyways. All right. Yeah, he got it.
Yeah, well, I guess my next choice is I got a 22R. It's going to go in there.
Well, but what you can do though
Lots
is you
of
can
parts for that.
do a leak down test.
You're going to have to turn the cam
After you get it retimed.
manually. Try to put it in so you can get the valves closed, or just take all the bolts loose on the top of the cam. Not all the way out, just loose so that the cam rises up with the spring pressure and all the valves are closed. And then do a leak down test, like Shannon said, all cylinders. And if they've got pressure and it holds them in all cylinders,
It's
Go
probably
ahead
going to run again.
go ahead and put a timing belt on it, fix it, good to go.
Yeah, it's getting parts for it's getting interesting. That's why I thought I'd go through
We've dismantled a couple
up
of
here in
Amigos. No, we haven't. No, they weren't. They weren't
he's
Amigos.
in BC.
No, these were.
That's
They were.
home of Autotempest.com.
That is Autotempest.com.
They've got a lot of really cool classics up there. When I've been up there, like in Victoria Island, wow, they've got a lot of stuff just because of the temperature. But now, what are they like in Canada for emissions laws? Here, it's getting worse and stricter. We say worse because we don't like it because we like to put hot rod stuff in. But when you go swapping out an engine, do you have any problems there with putting in a different engine that wasn't native to the Amigo? Would they be okay with throwing a 22R in there, or do you have to do emissions inspections or anything?
Well, where I live up in Kamloops. I'm interior British Columbia, so they
sweet.
don't do a lot of that. They're paying more attention to people doing suspension stuff, messing around with
Jacking them up
exhaust.
too tall?
And yeah, people make these homemade suspension lifts.
Yep.
Pay a lot more
Dangerous
attention
suspension
to
lifts,
that.
getting them too high,
What
not having the right drive under protection. There's a big issue in the South with the trend with what do they call it, where they got the back end real low,
Yeah.
squatting them,
Yep.
and they're-
Carolina squat.
Colorado
Yep.
squat, and they're having problems with just the impact bars not being in the right place when they hit people, and the headlights not working right.
Too
and,
high.
all kinds of problems.
What maybe you don't know up there, but in Canada, do they have a lot of issues with the people that delete the emissions from the diesel trucks? Are they going after them like they are here?
I don't know that they are. We had a lot of emission stuff in our bigger cities in Vancouver, but they kind of laxed off on that now. They just haven't been able to maintain it with what's going on.
Sure.
I know people still have to get emissions done and stuff, but it's more focusing on the newer vehicles.
Okay.
And
up
here we don't do a lot of that kind of
Cam
stuff.
loops, we're on our way, right, Chris?
That's my place. That's my final. I'm ready. That's my dream spot. And
Where
my-
at?
Kamloops, British Columbia. Yeah, if you have a place, if you got a basement or something, I'm in. I'll rent it from you. I'm ready.
Hey, we did not dismantle an Amigo. It was a Via Cross. We've done a couple of Via Crosses.
What's a Via Cross?
Look that up on your computer.
I
There's a guy
will.
with a computer. We don't have them, but you
Right.
look that baby up.
Via
All right.
Cross.
While he's doing that, we got to ask Colin. He's not going to tell us right away what color this red Amigo is.
I was gonna say red. Russ, what? We got two reds, Russ. So if you pick any other color, you're in.
It's silver.
What color is the Amigo, Colin?
It's blue.
Oh,
Wow.
that's got to be a rare one.
Yeah, I just saw a red one the other day, and I was in my Pontiac, and he goes, "Hey, I like your car." I said, "I like
My
yours."
first thought was actually blue, but if I said anything other than silver, it was going to be white.
Colin, thanks very much for the call. Does it have does it have Amigo lettering on the side, or is it blank?
It does, yeah. It was a soft top when I got it, but I built a fiberglass tonneau cover that looks like a notchback, Volkswagen notchback.
Sure.
On the back of it. So it looks more like the old Sunrunners, with the two-door Sunrunners or the
Yeah, that
two-seater.
sounds fun.
That sounds
fun.
great. Alan, thanks very much for the call. 866-594-4150. What am I looking up? Via Cross?
Isuzu Via Cross.
Isuzu Via Cross. I used to have an Isuzu Amigo, and it had there was a name for the lettering I had. There was different years had different letterings, so mine was the font. I can't remember what the
Was
font
it in a different language?
No.
It was the Amigo font.
It was and it wasn't the painted script. It was a block.
I kind of remember that.
Yeah,
but
I can't remember it. Isuzu Via Cross. Was that like the
really high belt line, like
It's a crossover.
like a Mitsubishi Barrage Sport. They had a really
Okay,
high
yeah.
belt line.
Oh yeah.
You see it now?
Yeah.
If you got a fancy one, it had big 31 or 32-inch tires on it.
Big 31.
Looks like a what? It looks like a sand buggy or something.
It kinda
almost.
does.
It's pretty high, real high on the.
The headlights are just weird on those cars. They just weirded me out, like the Nissan Rogue or what's
Juke
the
and the Rogue.
Juke.
All
The
right,
Juke.
let's change the subject here.
Okay.
If you're listening to the show today, we're producing the show and we're listening to it in our headphones.
Of course they're listening. If we
How,
say
how
you're
are
listening.
how are people going to hear it? How do they hear our show?
On through their
Speakers.
Bluetooth in their car.
Okay,
Through a
that's one
speaker.
way. How else do they hear it?
Through a speaker.
AirPods. Radio.
Keep going. There you go. Radio. What kind of radio?
The AM.
Yeah.
Radio. AM radio.
Okay,
FM radio.
Or FM
We're-
radio.
We're more than half and half.
And they also might pick up a podcast, and then
We're more than half and half.
Yeah,
Hold
we've
on.
got-
Hold on.
we've
hold
got
on. Let me
more.
just let me
can't
just
let that go, can
digest
ya?
that phrase.
We're not half AM, half FM. We're more FM than
half
AM.
And half. Okay.
Yeah. So
All
we're
right.
more FM than AM.
we'll just leave that there. And you could be watching on YouTube, or you could be listening on YouTube and not watching.
Right.
You could have it just going on your computer screen and listening to us and not watching us be stupid. Lots of ways, right?
Yes.
Many ways. Well, those of you that are over half and half one way or the other and listening on AM radio, there's hope yet. Because the Detroit Big Three are sticking with AM radio, it says. Final assembly here from Automotive News in actually a July issue that I had here, but a lot of audio problems, of course, caused on AM radio. But AM has gotten it's not AM that it used to be.
Mm-mm.
You know, you're looking at so many things with digital radio and everything else, but Volvo and BMW told the Drive for a report this month that the power their EVs draw from the batteries generates too much audio interference for their liking. And so Audi, Porsche, Tesla, they're all going to be making their EVs without AM radio.
Okay.
But General Motors and Ford aren't eager to toss the AM dial aside. The Ford F-150 Lightning and Mustang Mach-E, Cadillac Lyriq, Chevrolet Bolt, and GMC Hummer EV all offer AM radio and have not been inundated with complaints about poor sound.
Interesting.
Yeah. So they did contact Stellantis.
Sounds like a Starbase, doesn't
Dodge.
it?
Dodge.
Yeah, and found that they're going to keep after it for a little while too.
Okay.
You know, listening to the radio on my drive to work every day, I switch back and forth between an AM signal and an FM signal of the same station because different times of the day,
Right.
the FM
Especially
just
as you
doesn't
get
go.
to winter too, because
Yeah.
it's going to be low power AM until.
Yep, they change it. And then if both of them are awful, like if they've had a transmitter issue or something at the time, then occasionally I'll have to just go to my phone and dial in the station's call letters and listen live over the internet to get a clear signal. So these cars, when they go away from AM, if it's a station that was traditionally AM, I know there's one that we're on that is AM. They do not have an FM translator, but they're also on the internet. So you can listen to them on your phone, on the internet, or you can listen on AM. And we've got a few that are that way too. And it's completely different, signal depending on where you're at and what time it is. But, watch it, nothing like listening to a baseball game on the radio on AM versus FM.
Absolutely.
It's not the same. Don't listen on the
For
internet.
us.
Yeah, for us.
Yeah.
Not internet.
Right.
Ask my kids that question.
Yeah.
They
And
said,
I-
I don't
well-
want to watch baseball. Listen to a baseball game.
I don't know what's the demographic. Has the demographic really changed? The younger ones that listen, are there a lot less younger people that listen to baseball?
Here's a quick little
than
survey in
used
the
to?
same story. It said in 2021, survey of U.S. drivers, 89% said radio should be standard equipment, compared with 84% who said USB ports should be.
Interesting. That is pretty close there.
A volume knob and a USB port.
That's more than half and half. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we want to hear from you. 866-594-4150.
Be sure to visit our website for news, contests, and previous shows at underthehoodshow.com. Welcome back, everybody. It's time to get back under the hood with the Motor Medics.
866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here at the Under the Hood Show. Let's go to Oklahoma and talk to Rod. You're on the Under the Hood Show. Rod, what can we do for you?
Well, I was trying to figure something out. I got a 95 Chevy pickup, and I was loaded with a bunch of weight in the back going down the highway, and actually I started slowing down and like it was slipping, and I'm like, well, I'll pull over the side of the road, and I was emitting transmission fluid, so I got to the city, I fixed that, filled it back up. Now I have a like a clunk or a clank or something when it hits second gear real hard, and I was kind of wondering if that was the accumulator or servo or the band, or is there something that...
So your 95 Chevy pickup, I'm assuming this is a half ton?
It is.
All right. So by that year, they had learned that people that overpulled these or overworked them, they would get the transmission fluid hot enough that it would boil it out the dipstick tube. And so do you have that funky little locking dipstick tube on yours that somebody ever put on there?
Yeah, I do, but it actually, it was low on fluid, and I had to put like damn near a gallon after I got the leak fixed.
So you got a leak in a cooler line or something?
Yeah, the upper cooler line was leaking, and it was...
Oh, boy.
It was emitting bad.
If it leaked a gallon of fluid, or almost, and it got so bad that the vehicle stopped pulling down the road, it means that the fluid got low, the clutches started slipping and burning and coming apart as the fluid was getting lower and lower. So now that you've refilled it, you probably have either got a bunch of material in the transmission that's fine enough to get through the filter, or you burned up some of the clutches or some of the seals in there so that when it shifts into those other gears, let's say first gear is slipping, the pressure modulator is adjusted to full pressure in that thing.
That's all done electronically.
Yep, and it's banging really hard because it's covering up the problem in the gears that are slipping by giving it more pressure, but then when it shifts to a gear that's still pretty intact, because it probably wasn't in second gear when this happened, it bangs real hard going into that gear. So the fix for it is replacing the transmission or rebuilding it.
Which is not what you wanted us to say.
No. Usually if you have a small leak and it's bad enough that when you park it, you go to start it up, you put it in gear, and it just won't go anywhere, it's slipping a little, you're fine. You fix the leak, you fill it up, you're good to go. But if the leak occurs and it starts slipping as you're driving down the highway, especially with a load in it, like you said you were pulling a load in there or had a heavy load, that'll cook that transmission just like stepping on a clutch pedal lightly as you're driving down the highway. It's going to slip the clutches and generate a lot of heat and burn them up. Unfortunately, the only good thing is that the 95 Chevy truck, there are much more expensive transmissions out there than that truck. So you would be able to, you might even be able to pick one up at a U-Pull-It yard or a auto recycler for a fair price compared to what some of the new ones cost.
Rod, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. Yeah, that seems pretty not straightforward.
Oh,
but
he's not done. There's more there.
Go ahead, Rod.
First of all, it is modulated. It's a 4L60E, which is electronic, which has a cable-operated TCC valve on it. So basically, the transmission still works. It didn't burn it up. I just have a harsh engagement when it hits second gear. And I was just wondering if the accumulator, which is on the side of the transmission, since it's real close to the exhaust, since it got so low on fluid, did it get that so hot and brittle to where it's bypassing that and making it hit, or would it be the servo inside the transmission on, basically creating this problem? Because the tranny works fine now. It shifts out fine.
You could pull that accumulator and inspect it. that's definitely something you could do in the vehicle because you could have some issues. If you get it warm enough where you're getting exhaust by it, if it's been warm towing, that can cause damage in the trains. A lot of them have that little metal heat shield that bolts to the bottom of the pan bolt and curves around the side and covers that up. If yours is missing, then that's definitely a spot of issue. So you could take a look in there and see what's going on. I would pull the pan off and see what the fluid left in the bottom of the pan, see if you've got any stuff, because if it's really clean, then the fluid being low shouldn't have damaged anything, because you're going to see evidence in the pan immediately of clutches burning when there's a slippage going on. So if you pull the pan and don't see anything, then you might look at some of these other things like your accumulator. And
what year did you say this truck was, Rod?
It's a 1995.
Which engine is in it?
Right.
What engine do you have, Rod?
It's got the 5.7 throttle body.
Yeah, that should have been a
throttle body.
Yeah, 95 was the last year of the throttle body.
So,
but it still should have been a 4L60 electronically shifted, like he said.
Yeah.
It's a 4L60E in that
but
truck.
It's got a cable. It's got a TV cable on it.
I don't think it should.
No. It might. I don't
think it does.
Because if it's a 4L60E.
Because they started the E electronic transmission in 93 or
93 and 4.
Yep. And so, yeah, you need to, like I said, when you get one that hot, if you've had problems or you lost fluid, just making sure you do that inspection by pulling the pan. And just a good smell test and inspection is going to tell you a lot. And if you feel like you didn't burn up the clutches, then you're probably onto the right thing. So,
Rod, thanks very much for the call. Good luck. 866-594-4150. That's the number to reach us here. And don't forget, you can watch us do the show on our YouTube channel and on our Facebook page if you want. I'd just listen. You know what I mean?
You mean
That's
turn,
kinda, yeah.
turn the video on Facebook and just or YouTube and just listen?
I just listen to the radio.
Podcast?
Radio. I would listen when it's on.
I had somebody just recently talked to me.
I'd put the radio up on the shelf in my garage, an old one.
Yeah, there you go.
And
Work on your car.
Yep. Or look at it, polish it. I don't really work
I had
on
somebody I
it.
just met recently that was new to the YouTube channel watching us, and they said, "Got to tell you, I had your guys' voices with the wrong bodies."
Oh, interesting.
They had Russ and my voices with different bodies.
Huh. That is interesting, because that's a big thing in my business. When people meet you, they're like, "Oh, you're not what I pictured."
I expected you were taller.
Or something, yeah. Or fatter. I get that once in a while.
A guy
thought
come
you'd be
into our
fatter.
shop the other day and then listens to our show and he says, "Well, I
Give me a
thought you'd be
month."
taller." I'm like, "How tall did you want me to be?" This guy
You're
was
not
like
6'7".
This guy was like 6 foot.
Hey, you're
so he
pretty
wasn't-
tall.
I'm like, how? You thought I'd be taller?
That's pretty.
What?
You're not, the kids nowadays. The kids are super tall now.
Here we go again.
Hey,
The
hey,
ki-
man.
the kids.
The kids are tall.
How
when
old
you-
are those kids?
When you grew up, how many? Your high school graduating class. How many tall kids were in that class? Would you say? Just how many tall?
Three. 28.
Your son in his class. How many kids were tall?
A few more, but he didn't have a real tall class for some reason.
I'll tell. When I was a kid, when we were kids.
You're still a kid.
My brother had someone on his basketball team. I could tell you the guy's name. I'm friends with him on Facebook. 6'4".
Yeah.
He could dunk a basketball, and people used to come to games to gawk at him. And now they're all that. There's 7-footers. The 7-footers grow on trees around here.
My brother-in-law was 6'11" in high school, 6'10", and same age as us. And growing up, people traveled to see the tall kid play basketball. It was something you just didn't see.
Right. Now?
And my friend Eric was 6'4", and he was the leaper on our team. And he was tall, and he could jump, and he could slam the basketball,
My son is 6'1", and he was the shortest except for one in his confirmation class, and that's including the girls. There's 9 kids. He's the second shortest, and he was 6'1". I'm telling you.
Something in the water.
Yep. That'll do it for this hour of the Under the Hood Show. Until next time, you can always find us at underthehoodshow.com. Thanks for listening to the Under the Hood Show. All right, this is the after show. This is a special just for our Patreon subscribers. Those who join the... We could do that. We should do that, maybe.
Why not?
What'd you call them?
Patreon. That's a site where you have to pay to get the special access.
Had to pause and have you say it again.
Patreon.
Is that the official
P-A-T-R-E-O-N.
industry word?
It's an official site.
A lot of the big talk guys
It's a
are
site.
using it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a.
That's how we can
Patreon.com.
actually make some money off of this?
Yeah.
Yeah, like probably $4 or $5 a year.
Heck yeah.
Something.
Heck yeah. What I was talking about when we were talking about the charger earlier, maybe someone watching can help us.
Your iPhone charger?
There was a the top level now of they're going to use a logo. Oh
No,
boy.
this is what you were saying. No, you mentioned top model, and I'm like,
The top levels, the top trim levels.
not top model of the show.
No, the Dodge.
See, I thought you said they were going to use this on top model.
No,
and that's why I said my girls watch that.
On the
And
top.
I wasn't trying to be funny. I was just being dumb.
On the top models of the electrification, the Hellcat versions.
Oh, let me think. I'm not Russ. I don't read it once and have every detail memorized.
They're going to use a new logo on the front that they used to use, and I am not going to remember the name.
Burnt toast.
It's FONG something, and it was a logo and designation they used in the 80s for the Hemi Dodge supermodels. Again, that could be misconstrued, the top levels. And they're going to bring it back and use it, and it doesn't mean anything. That was the point of this part of the article, that the logo and the
Google
name
it.
are just made up.
Would you Google that?
I will Google that.
We can't, but you can. Google that once.
Right. You can now. It's
Logo
the
on
after show.
Charger concept car.
Logo.
The RTSE.
I read the article. I actually read it, some of it twice, and then it showed my wife and had her read part of it, or just kind of look, and we gawked.
Fratzog. Fratzog.
I've never heard that name.
What does it look like?
What is a Fratzog? Inside Dodge's new old logo from Edmunds.com. There's the logo. It's like a triangle. Right there.
Oh, I've seen that.
Yeah.
That's the Mitsubishi triangle.
Dodge unveiled the all-electric Charger Daytona SRT concept Wednesday night. Fratzog logo appears on the concept's front grille. What the heck is it? Probably not.
They used to use that logo like on the old Imperial.
1962 Polaris 500 or Polara 500.
Russ is close. He's real close.
Was used as the primary Dodge logo on everything from hood ornaments to steering wheels to grills. Dodge used this sticker until 1981 when it adopted the Pontiac pentagram.
I'm just listening.
Interesting, huh? Dodge eventually began using what is now the Ram logo in the mid-'90s until the truck brand was spun off. That's how it ended up. That's how we ended up with the Dodge and two stripes logo, which eventually brings us to the Brotherhood of Muscle era and the return of the Fratzog. Cool, but where does Fratzog come from? Does it mean anything? It does not appear so. The designer apparently came up with the word on the spot when prompted to name the logo. So there you go. And they're going to bring
What
that
is that
back.
thing? Oh, it's the Fratzog.
It's the Fratzog.
It's a Fratzog.
Yeah.
With the Frat, we had a dog. Name was Frat's dog. That was weak.
That was pretty weak. So there you go. That is the Fratzog. I didn't know if you had known what it was or...
Did not. I remember reading that, but I just didn't. Apparently, I didn't care because I didn't absorb it.
Right. That's
I cared
fair.
about the look of that car.
Mm-hmm.
I cared about the sound they were trying to emulate.
Have you heard that? Have you heard the...
No.
Okay, let me see.
I didn't dig that deep.
I'll go see if I can find that quick.
I didn't dig that deep. So I cannot believe you took a road trip and don't have a vehicle-related story
don't.
problem.
I drove, I did some off-roading, not like as a thing, but I was on roads that were off-road. I mean, I needed and I even stopped where I was going. I even stopped after a while because it was getting too the ruts were getting too big.
You're
And
afraid about bottoming out and taking an oil
Yeah.
pan or something.
I kind of went over. I did some creative
straddling.
Yeah.
Floor it and slide. If you had an electric car, you wouldn't have that problem. You could just skid right over the top of it.
It was super fun though. It was I was just out in the middle of places and it was really fun. Oh, now my mouse is not. Oh, it does that.
Hey,
Here
we
go.
got. Is that a?
Oh, now my mouse is. Oh, now my mouse is. Oh, because I'm.
Hey,
Hold
we
on.
got. Is that a? Hey, we got. Is that a?
I was on YouTube and we were
Yeah.
on YouTube. So
You're echoing it back.
this is the SRT.
That hum. That's
I was on YouTube and we were on YouTube. So
You're echoing it back.
this is the. So that's what it sounds like. Is it
Sounds evil.
drone? Yeah.
Ominous.
I'm all for that. 126 decibels, they said in the article.
I would say.
What were you reading? Were you reading Motor Trend?
I always forget which one I'm
I'm
on.
okay with that because it's far enough away from an internal combustion engine. That to me sounds like electric motors.
Well, that's what they said.
Revving.
They're as the power transfers, they're taking a signal from that and amplifying it.
That is a power sound to me, like a like spinning electric
They
motors.
sound like they got that baby wired right to the power transfer.
Yep.
Is kind of what I
It's
took out
not.
of it.
It's
And then
not
they
a
have it-
fake gas engine. That's good.
Amplified. It goes to the back and then it's amplified and comes out a speaker. Is what I thought it said.
It sounds really cool.
I think it does. Yeah.
Sounds like, if it was pulling up in a movie or something and it was the bad guy, you'd be like, oh, it's Christine. Yee.
I would just put the shooter sounds from Star Wars on it. Pew pew pew.
That's coming.
It's way better than having ice cream truck sounds. When you
Oh, that's a good idea too.
Sounds like a TIE fighter flying by.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah. All right. Hold on to Rod. Stay right where you are. That'll do it for the after show, unless you guys got anything else.
no.
All right.
I'm ready for. I guess I'm ready for it to be done today.
Okay. That will do it for the after show and for the Under the Hood show.
Bye bye.
Thank you, everybody.